Bonjour, Pierrot, French girl in Seattle. I am sitting by the Seine River, but don't try and recognize anything you've seen downtown because I am not downtown. I am by the Seine River, west of Paris, on an island, a place that's very special to me and once was special to a lot of people as well. It's called L'Ile des Impressionnistes, Ile de Chatou as well. And there is a lot of history here. It's a beautiful day at the end of May of 2020. Hardly a few people around, probably because the two restaurants on the island have been closed since March and will likely reopen in June if we're lucky. But I thought I would give you a little tour of the island, as I like to do, showing you Paris off the beaten path. And for me, that means often taking you to the outskirts of Paris, in La Petite Couronne, where I live, on the other side of the ring road that circles Paris, or sometimes a little bit farther out. And to come here, you would need to take the RER train, the regional train, towards Saint-Germain-en-Laye, and your stop would be the beautiful city of Rueil-Malmaison. You've probably heard of Rueil because of the chateau where Joséphine de Beauharnais, Napoleon's first wife and great love, used to live. But we're not very far from it. It's probably a 20-25 minute walk from here if I cross the bridge that you see here. So let's start our little visit because this island is quite special. We will start, I think, right here. I want to introduce you to a place in case you haven't been here yet. Do you recognize this painting? This is Luncheon of the Boating Party by Pierrot Renoir. It was painted in 1881. And this beautiful scene, friends having a great time on a beautiful terrace, lunchtime clearly, shows Renoir shows here some of his friends. He shows his future wife, in fact, the pretty lady looking at the little dog on the left. He shows one of his artist friends and art patron on the right-hand side with the straw hat, Gustave Caillebotte. And you also have Alphonsine Fournaise, the pretty Alphonsine Fournaise. And I'm mentioning her because this is a place, this island, where she was really well known and where her family owned a business that she ended up running in the second half of the 19th century. And this very special place stands right here next to us. It's called La Maison Fournaise. Now you can't really see it very well with this beautiful platane, sycamore tree that's been here for a while. So why don't we walk around a little bit? So you can see La Maison Fournaise in all of its glory. It's looking a little sad and abandoned right now, of course, because of the situation in Paris and around the world. Here is, my friends, La Maison Fournaise, named after the Fournaise family. It was created, or it opened, as a restaurant at first in the first half of the 19th century, and it was pretty much in operation until the early 1900s when it was sold. And this is the place, this island, where a lot of painters, intellectuals, artists, politicians met, on Sundays especially. And if we go back in time a little bit, this was all made possible because the railroad arrived here. On the other side of those trees over there is a lovely town named Chatou. So Rueil-Malmaison is on this side of the river, and we are in a separate section of Ile-de-France, les Hauts-de-Seine. And then if you cross the bridge, past the little island where we are standing, or the big island I should say, is Chatou. And this island is considered part of Chatou as well. But in the early 19th centuries, the train arrived here. And so it was a really short ride from Gare Saint-Lazare in Paris to hop on a train. 20 minutes later, you would arrive here on this island and other islands in the area. And a very popular thing to do here, I know what, I will show you what was a popular thing to do. Once the train brought people here in such a short time, they started coming and flocked here because Paris in the late 19th century, well, you know, Haussmann and Napoleon III had undertaken their 20-year remodel of Paris, but it was still a big, busy, crazy city, and it was lovely to come here on the weekends, especially on Sundays. And in the 19th century, you see these boats? What became really popular was le canotage, C-A-N-O-T-A-G-E, le canotage. And so the canoeists, the people who indulge in that practice, came here and they wore those cute little straw hats that are known, you know, it's all named after le canotage. The hats were called in French les canotiers. Maurice Chevalier, the French performer in the 40s, wore them a lot. So you had to basically look the part if you came here to exercise and to enjoy the fresh air. You would dress up a little. Sailor shirts were not entirely out of the question. And you would come with your friends. You would enjoy the good life. You would row. You would lounge by the Seine river. You would have a picnic. And sometimes what you would do is you would go have lunch at la Maison Fournaise. It already was very peaceful, and it still is in this part of Paris. I will tell you a little bit more about what's on the other side across from us, but here's in a péniche, a barge, headed towards Paris. Now the Seine really meanders all the way to Le Havre, which sits in Normandy. And very few people imagine how pretty it is if you follow the Seine outside Paris all the way to the coast. Lots of magical places like this, lots of small towns like Chatou, Bougival, where a lot happened in the 19th century, and they usually have very pretty city centers. So if I go around la Maison Fournaise, I'm just going to walk around it to show you what it looks like. It didn't always look this good. The Fournaise family was extremely entrepreneurial. They opened a restaurant, they opened a hotel, they also opened a place where people could rent boats, and it's behind me, I'll show it to you later. So for a good 20 years, they were extremely successful. So let's walk around la Maison Fournaise, which is very quiet today, of course. And picture this place, a very lively place, especially on Sundays, when people would walk around. Look at the beautiful wisteria. Wish I'd been here a few weeks ago when it bloomed. I love the colors of the facade, the brick and the beautiful colors, and the shutters, of course, les volets, actual shutters, the type that you use to keep the heat out or the light out. Now, this part of la Maison Fournaise has been turned into a museum, and since last fall they have started doing something I haven't seen yet. Oh, here's a kitty. Bonjour, Minou. Parisian kitty. They've turned it into a museum. As you can see, the sign is up here. Let's look at this one maybe. And the museum was dedicated to Renoir, who was a familiar sight here. Loved it here, and it's an immersive experience. I haven't tried it. It started in the fall, so I don't know if somebody's tried it. But right now, of course, it's part of la Maison Fournaise, but right now it's all closed. Like all museums in France, they still haven't reopened. So I'll definitely come back when I can. watching my step on the cobblestones, les pavés. Ooh, and look at this. This is really pretty. And they smell so good. You can see, oh, here's Minou again. Don't worry, don't worry. So the poor Fournaise is looking a little sad. In the summer here, when it's open, it's a very lively scene because the restaurant is open all week, pretty much all week. And people come from all around, especially all the offices across the river from us, and they come here and they have lunch, dinner. Let's see. I'll try and step on this thing without falling through because they're obviously doing some work. I want to show you the most famous part of La Maison Fournaise, even though it's wrapped up in plastic right now. In that Renoir painting, Luncheon of the boating party I just showed you, this is the famous Terrace with its iron railing, where so many of Renoir's friends have sat under a giant platane, which is so French to me, a sycamore tree. Pretty French sight. Underneath they have rooms they can rent for private parties. And a familiar sight now is that everything seems to be wrapped in plastic. Clearly a protection from the wind, but right now it also makes me think of all these places where workers have to protect themselves and are hiding behind plastic sheets like this. It's really sad. So this is the most famous part, definitely, the terrace. So they would come here, they would play on the water. Some people would swim even, and then they would eat and drink, chat with their friends, whoever they were, famous people, not so famous people, starving artists. And the house behind it over here is a house that's been here since the late 18th century. And for a long time it was a place where people could rent rooms as well. So it was kind of a competing business, I guess, for La Fournaise. Starving artists would live here because the rooms were so cheap. And it has also an interesting story, but let's just say that right now it's been turned into La Galerie Bessières, which is a place where they exhibit contemporary art. But it's been used over the years as an artist's workshop as well by some famous painters that belong to Fauvism. So this is the other building. Now if we get a little closer, I want to show you some things they've tried to preserve on the facade. I really like it. This is a lovely site. Oh, the Chatou Church. Do you see the little steeple over there? That's what we hear. You just feel like you're in a village here. You're on an island. It says La Fournaise, you see? And some of the frescoes have been protected. And this one is really fun. It follows a man from childhood to old age. So there's this man as a child. It's interesting because his face almost looks like a man's face, but he's a child. And it says, as a child, he would indulge in the pleasures of his age group. And then he grows up. Here he is, as a young man, and it says, as a young man, he listens to his heart speak. And look what he's doing. We call this effeuiller la marguerite. So what you did is to find out if your loved one was in love with you or loved you back, you would use a daisy and you would pull out the petals one by one and you would go through the little song. You would say, she loves me a little, and you would pull out one petal. She loves me a lot. She loves me like crazy. She loves me passionately. She loves me not at all. And you did this until there were no petals left, hoping for the best, because if the last petal was she loves me not at all, then you were crushed. And finally, the young man has turned older. There he is. And this tells us, what does this tell us? At a mature age, he decides to become serious. He's not quite old yet, he's just mature. There we are, the end of the story. The gentleman is much, much older, walking with a cane, and devenu vieux, il songe à se retirer. An old man, he's thinking about going away or retiring, I guess. I just love this place. Hotel, restaurant. So yes, it was both a hotel and a restaurant. The Fournaise family was super efficient. The father was the entrepreneur who took care of the boats and the business. The mother worked in the kitchen. She was a really good cook. And then the daughter and the son helped with the business. And the daughter in particular, Alphonsine, was so pretty that men came from everywhere to see her. And like I said, she ended up taking over the business until she died. Then it was sold and fell in a bad state of disrepair. And it was renovated after the city of Chatou bought it in the late 1970s. And by then it had been made a historic monument of France, so it's protected. And it reopened as a restaurant in the first half of the 90s. We have some happy children here. It reopened as a restaurant in the first half of the 90s. I want to show you the part where the old Fournaise gentleman had his boat rental place, and today it's being used by an association that fixes the old boats that used to be popular in the days of canotage on the Seine River from the late 19th century to the early 20th. This is another restaurant that's closed as well. You can see it's all overgrown. It's called Les Rives de la Courtille. I've had lunch here a couple times, or ice cream for dessert. Here's a bench with a pretty nice view, wouldn't you say? How nice would it be? Because when you're sitting here, this is your view. The Seine River. Pas mal. Not bad at all. So let's continue, because the boat shed is right there. Alphonse Fournaise old business. And the sign tells us that there is a chantier, a place where people work, and it's named Sequana, which is the old-fashioned name, the Latin name of the Seine River. Les bateaux du patrimoine. Boats of our heritage. And I think this association started it says here since 1989, so it's pretty recent. And what they do is they fix the type of boats that these people, Renoir and all his friends, Maupassant, writer, author Maupassant also was one, Apollinaire, they all came here. And so you look at those beautiful boats. So they're inside this building, some of them, and they work on them. And they have the cutest little names. This one's named Coucou, which is the French way of saying, friendly way of saying hi in French. Lulu, Mouche, like a fly. Triplette, probably because 3 people could row at the same time. Cécile, Clotu, and then you also had sailboats. This one's named after the Seine River. Roast beef, no doubt dedicated to our English friends. That's their nickname in France. They call us the frogs, we call them roast beef. Suzanne, this one has steam engine. Madame is really pretty. Loulou, Gaston, and so forth. So what they do is they work on the boats, but they also use the boats. They do tours, So you can come and visit, and they will explain to you in there what they do. But they also use the boats as much as they can. They put them in the water, and they organize fun parties. And this is the place where they explain to you what the association does. Here they are, look at them. Just like Renoir and his friends. Oh, and sometimes they dress up, clearly. So it's nice that they not only work on the boats, but also use them. So these old boats can find some of their past glory again. Too bad we can't go inside. Oh, and look at that. This is the... This is great. This is the bench of liars. The first 15 minutes are free. The next 30 minutes are €5, and they close at 7 p.m. You cannot lie after 7 p.m. And our friend Renoir is here. They had planned so many things, and everything has been put on hold. Here they are working on the boats. I can tell there's a lot of talents, skills here. And what's on this side? I think it's the end. Now, if you continue on the island in this direction, you would meet a big research center. There's a dam on the river nearby, and there's a big research center that belongs to EDF, which is the French power company. On the other side of the island, there is a golf course and a space where they do a brocante twice a year, which is really fun. Oh, this is a tribute to the goddess of the Seine River, the beautiful Sequana. And she says, I'm 20 years old. That's probably the association. Yeah, it was for the association, 1990 through 2010. Because the river is a lot older than that. Though she still looks great, huh? So to finish our little tour today, what I would like to do is tell you why this is a special place for me. La Maison Fournaise, the island of the Impressionnistes. You may know that I lived in Paris for 10 years before I relocated to Seattle. And I was in my 20s and early 30s in Paris from the mid-80s to the mid-90s or so. And when I first arrived in Paris, I was a student, a graduate student. I was preparing the examination to become an English teacher in French high schools. So I needed a part-time job to pay for school and other things. And I got hired as a customer service rep, telephone customer service rep, by a company which was at the time and still is American Express France. So 20 hours a week I came here to Rueil-Malmaison. I will show you exactly where I came, in fact, here. Do you see right across from us, without falling in the water, there is a big square building, and you can see on the side that blue logo. It says American Express. So I started working there part-time in 1988, and I ended up staying with them full-time and had a pretty good career here until I moved to Seattle for close to 10 years. And for most of those 10 years, I worked in that building when the big Rueil 2000 complex, business complex that is now everywhere on that side, was not there yet. So it was in construction for most of my time there. It was crazy. But at some point in time, one of my offices overlooked the river. In fact, I can still see the window right where we are, from where we are, and it overlooked the river and it overlooked La Maison Fournaise. And so my friends and I would come here for special occasions. We would take our cars, we would cross the big construction site at the time, and then cross this bridge, le Pont de Chatou, come down here and park, and then we would have lovely, lovely lunches, long lunches, because they were usually on Fridays. And we are French, or we were French, so we took our time and we would go for a couple of hours and celebrate a birthday, an engagement party, etc. So I can say proudly that I am like Renoir and all his friends right here. I have been fortunate to have lunch with friends and laugh a lot on this beautiful terrace or balcony. I love this place so much I decided to get married here before I moved to Seattle. But a couple of people talked me out of it, which I regretted. We got married in a very pretty place outside Paris in a small village, but this is where I would have wanted to get married for a variety of reasons. And so I didn't give up on it. And when our son turned 3.5 and it was time to christen him, I organized the lunch party for his christening. And we had it at La Maison Fournaise, exactly where I'm standing. There is a private room right behind those windows that they rent out. And I still have the photo of that time with a small group of relatives. And we had my son's christening party at the beautiful Maison Fournaise. So there you have it, my friends. This was the story, a very brief story of La Fournaise. But as always with my videos, I will share in the video notes some information, and definitely the blog post that I wrote years ago on the French Girl in Seattle blog about La Maison Fournaise. It's one of my favorites to this day that I've ever written. Now you understand why, and I will put it in the video notes so you can read it as well and look at the photos and read the story of this amazing place and the people who used to come here many years ago. Oh look, we have quelques nénuphars, some water lilies, or at least the leaves, no blooms, and some coquelicot poppies in the foreground. So my plan for today, I have my picnic. And as you can see when you're here, you feel like the restaurant is here. You feel like you're on a village square. You see those benches over there? I might just have a picnic on that little bench we saw over there in the back. And then my plan is to walk alongside the river to that other bridge in the distance, which is really pretty. And then I'll cross over and I'll be in Rueil-Malmaison again. And then I'll walk back to the RER train to head back to my corner of the Parisian woods, which is basically the opposite of here in the eastern side of Paris. But for today, I just want to say thank you for following my little walk here on the Ile des Impressionnistes, on that pretty island. You can find me every day on Facebook and Instagram, where I share information about France as France with Vero, on my blog at FrenchGirlInSeattle.com, on my YouTube channel, French Girl in Seattle, where I share videos like this one. Please subscribe and give me a like if you enjoy watching some of these videos. I also set up a live event each week where I share more behind the scenes looks at my Parisian life and tell you stories that are not told very often. So there are many ways to stay in touch with me. And I have a Patreon program as well where you can help support my many creative endeavors so I get to do more of these tours and trips and take you with me around Paris, but not just Paris, around France as well, as soon as I start traveling again. So patreon.com/FrenchGirlInSeattle. For now, I would like to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining me, and à bientôt.